Today, my friends, we're back in the Pit project with another addition to this insane diorama display case. Now, if you're new around here and you're not familiar with the Pit project, we've linked a playlist for you in the description, and that'll get you all caught up. For this particular project, I wanted to try my hand at 3D modeling, and I wanted to do a lot of 3D printing for it just to see what that experience would be like. But before we do that, we've got to come up with some concept images and get an idea of what we want, and then we can get started. So I headed into Midjourney and started playing around with various descriptions of what I wanted, and then I refined them further and further to get something I like. This has become a very interesting and entertaining part of the project for me. It allows me to get a whole range of different looks and design ideas that I can then build on. Now, I'm not copying these concept images directly. They're just inspiration like any other image you'd get from the internet. However, it does allow me to get a whole lot of awesome reference together in one place that's specific to what I'm trying to do. The next step was to head into Fusion 360 and start working out the shapes of the design of the street vendor. I'm still learning the program, and I've recently started playing around in Blender as well, with a big thank you to my friend Ron, but that's another video for another project. In Fusion, I'm able to break down each element of the street vendor and make that easier to print. Okay, so when I say easy to print, that might be a bit of a misnomer, because I had issues. Oh man, the FEP is torn. How many screws are on this bat? Well, that's a print fail. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Do not ingest. Uh-oh. That's not good. I'm gonna need more resin. Obviously, I'm kidding here. Well, a little. The truth is, for me, resin printing has been a bit messy. Not just physically, but the whole process. It's taken a lot of research and a bit of trial and error to see what actually works for me. Now, speaking of prints, let's take a look at what we got and let's get this project started. Now we have the prints themselves. Pretty good detail. There's some layer lines. I think it should be pretty minimal cleanup. This is the top section here, and then the lower section of the bar. And then these are designed to go together. Here's the top portion of the bar, and we've got some detail on the sides. And these recesses are for some LCD screens that we're gonna put in here. Here's the bar front. Some cleanup is need to be done. And there's some various spots here that cured funny. And I'm pretty new to the whole 3D printing thing, so this big chunky piece is the roof. The way it attaches, it connects up here. We got these recesses, as you saw in the 3D model, for the struts. I'm still not 100% sure we're gonna use these. This is probably my favorite piece here. First thing I need to do is some cleanup, so I'm gonna sand everything down. This is resin, so wear a mask when you're sanding this stuff. You don't want resin dust getting in your lungs. Okay, we got a little bit of filler primer on these, so now we can start doing some assembly. I need to test fit this guy to make sure everything is gonna go together as it's supposed to. This peg right here is just a little bit too big for the hole I have here, so we gotta fix that. Mostly glued together here. We're ready to do some painting, but we do need to decide on its location. You probably remember the old smoky minot. And where I want to put this is right up against this carved out wall. So there's no other way to do it than to just remove it, and then we'll have to adjust. We can get it put up somewhere else. Right in this corner would look pretty good. But one thing I have to think about is the struts. I'm realizing now they don't exactly fit anywhere. I don't think I'm going to use the struts. I kind of like the idea of having it as part of the old smoky minot. I think the next step is to get everything painted. Well, we're going to experiment a little bit with colors today. I'm going to use the airbrush to layer some things in, and then we'll get in and detail it out. Then we're going to mix in a little yellow. These Liquitex inks, they flow really well in the airbrush. The only thing about them they're not very saturated. So once you paint and it dries, the color is really dull. So you have to know that going in. Looks pretty bright. We gotta tone this down, especially the blue, right? So we'll get a little black wash on here to start. This is a Vallejo wash. I'm doing this on purpose because that ink paint, if you don't do a sealer first, it'll lift up, it'll expose what's underneath. I wanted to try this Vallejo just to see what kind of effect you can get out of it. You can certainly make your own wash, and I do often out of the oil-based paints. Now we gotta get some depth to it. That's really flat. It's time for a little black wash. Now I just need a little black wash and some weathering here. Now we got it all painted. Plenty of weathering and some of the weathering powders on it. Looks pretty good. One of the biggest challenges in mounting it, this is going to have to go in and out until we get things finalized. What I decided to do was a magnet, and then I'm going to put epoxy on this side, and then we're going to glue that to the stone. Magnet on here, a little magnet on there, so it doesn't snap too hard. I'll just slide it in place. Voila! I'm in the process of 3D printing bottles. Do have some interesting little brass pieces, and they look bottle-ish shape. Yeah, I mean, it looks legit, right? Got to thinking, got a bunch of different weird cylinder type pieces. From an old sewing machine, I have a bunch of pieces of turned aluminum and whatnot. I'm just applying CA glue to the aluminum pieces. If this was on a prop, it would not be enough to guarantee that it wouldn't come apart. But for this, it's really not gonna be a problem. On the roof part, we have this to deal with. Just did a laser cut panel design, and then this will just pop right on the top. That was a bit heavy-handed. I didn't even put the glue in the right place. I gotta recut that piece. Okay, let's try this again. Probably a lot of work for something so small that's going to sit in such an obscure place, but it's fun, right? All right, there's our panel weathered up, and then we're just gonna drop it in. All right, we got to get some electronics on these pieces. I'm gonna filament, basically just solder positive and negative onto the sides, and then we're gonna mount it in here and that it's set back. So I needed some diffusion, so I took some parchment paper and I cut it down, tucked it in here, and then we can check out the diffusion level here. Perfect. Modeled in at the top are these 3 holes here. Those 3 holes will shine light down on that top level, and they're modeled to fit a 5mm LED in each one. Instead of doing the wiring the hard way and soldering everything together, we're going to use these little guys. That makes it easy. Here's our covers. It's a quick airbrush job on them. Wanted a little bit of dull aluminum. And just get these glued in place here. Now I got all the lights in, and then I realized that I've got this little detail here. It was just going to be a recess area for some more parts and pieces. So all I did was cut a piece of styrene and then stippled on some silver metallic paint. Before we call this whole thing good, we need to add some cabling. So I've got some cord here, courtesy of my lovely wife. And what we're going to do is just kind of string this up in a few places to give the illusion of cabling. Now, no one's really going to see this side of things, but it makes me feel better knowing that the parts and pieces make sense. So putting this cable in the little hole that I put in there, it makes me feel better, and so that's what we're doing. So when you stand this up and adjust it, and I'll zoom out here for you, now you can see we've got some interesting looking cabling, presumably coming out of somewhere in there, and it adds a little bit of detail there. I'm going to be honest, this little addition is getting me very excited about where this project is headed. It's already given me a glimpse into how dense and detailed our display project will be. Now you'll notice that we didn't activate the LCDs, and again, that's going to be a full episode on its own. I want to take you through all the detail, how to build and design, as well as all the steps needed to create your own for your project, and that'll take more time. The other item missing is the signage. We issued a question to our Patreon group, and we do have 3 vendor names that we love, and each of them are receiving a prize. Guys, those are headed your way this week. However, I'm going to save the reveal of that as well. After coming up with interesting ideas, I think we can create an episode for you on making some tiny signage that might be incredibly valuable and enjoyable. Now, if you want your own drink vendor, you can go to our website. We put a link in the description, and you can pick up your own copy of the STL files for this actual project. Can't wait to see what you do with yours. Want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon community for their support. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next time we build something out of nothing.